In my opinion, floating shelves make every project or every space look just a little bit better. So let's build some today on Salty Woodworking. To get started on this project, I'm going to take a 2x12 and rip them into a bunch of little strips that are about 1.5 inches wide. These strips are going to be used to make our brackets for our floating shelves. It's a super simple and easy way to make brackets instead of having to buy some. Cutting them down to size, I am leaving myself about 1 inch of playroom, just so if I happen to make the shelf a little bit too small, I still have some playroom and can get it on there with no problem. Putting these brackets together, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. I'm just using some good old wood glue and some 2-inch brad nails. And the brad nails are just acting like a clamp. They're not really adding too much strength. The glue is going to be the strength behind these brackets. It's time to mount these puppies to the wall. And of course, instead of grabbing a ladder, I'm just going to go ahead and stand on the cabinets. They're pretty strong, so that's a good point. I'm just going ahead and countersinking these screws. I'm just using 2.5-inch interior screws to mount them to the studs. I'm trying to hit as many studs as I can, and I'm also screwing into the side of the shiplap. For this project, I'm using 3/4-inch plywood. This here is maple plywood, which of course you could use any plywood, any species that you would like. Just I have a lot of projects in my house that were done with maple, so I'm kind of just trying to keep up with that theme. I'm gonna get started by taking my good old Milwaukee track saw and ripping down these pieces to the desired width, which I actually ended up cutting them 1 inch oversized what I had planned. That way when I go to scribe the wall to make them fit perfectly, they'll be just the width that I want them to be. After that, I took it to the miter saw and went ahead and cut them just 1 inch over the final size that I'm gonna need. These shelves will be made with miter folds, but since 2 sides are against a wall, I only have to put 45s on 2 of the opposing sides. Make sure before you decide to cut your 45s that you pick which side of the plywood you want to be the top or the bottom. That way you have the good side facing up. Now that I have the 45s cut on the top and bottom of the floating shelves, I'm going to go ahead and cut the front and sides. Using the same plywood, I'm going to go ahead and cut them down to the thickness that I want the shelves to be, which for these shelves I decided to go with about 3 inches thick. So I went ahead and cut 45s on both sides, and then I'm going to go ahead and take them over to the miter saw and cut 45s on one end. You'll see how all this comes together once we start to glue everything up. I find this the easiest way to get an accurate measurement for your cut without having to do math. Just set it on top, line up the edges, and mark it on the bottom. After that, you can take it to the miter saw, cut it, and then it's the perfect size. Now that we have all the pieces cut to the correct size, we're going to go ahead and glue it up. I'm using Titebond 3 to glue this up. No specific reason other than it's what I have laying around in a big old gallon bottle, so I'm gonna go ahead and use it. No clamps will be involved in this, just using some good old masking tape to act as clamps. After letting the shelves sit overnight, it's time to go ahead and pull the tape off just to see how everything turned out. Off camera, I took the shelves and brought them upstairs and put them on the brackets and used a pencil to go ahead and scribe the wall. Here I'm taking the track saw and just following that line so they fit perfectly against the wall. Now here's the fun part, putting the LEDs into these floating shelves. I made a quick and dirty template just using some scrap wood I had laying around. I just simply took the diffuser channel that I'm going to be using here and sandwiched it between two boards and then just locked them in together. That way I got the perfect width with the pattern bit so these diffusers fit in there perfectly. The only downside of using a router is you do have to go back with a chisel and clean up the corners, but it only takes a couple of minutes. Now that I got the diffuser fitting in there perfectly, I just need to cut it down to size. And the good part about an aluminum channel is you can use your woodworking tools to cut them. So I just took it to the miter saw and went ahead and cut them. After making sure that they fit in there perfectly, I went ahead and took some CA glue, sprayed some adhesive on the diffuser, stuck them on there. And now they shouldn't go anywhere. For this project, I will be using LED strips that are called SK6812 LED strips. They're from BTF Lighting on Amazon. I'll make sure to leave a link down in the description, along with the diffuser I use and the controller I use. I'm not going to go in depth on this video on the wiring and the programming of these LEDs, but I'm using a WLED controller. If you're interested to learn more about it, you could look it up on YouTube, but if you want me to make a video about it, just let me know in the comments and I can definitely get started on working on that. The great thing about WLED is you can literally control every single LED on an individual strip. So it's super programmable and you can do all kinds of super cool options with it. Plus it connects to Wi-Fi so you can use Alexa and everything else with it. Here you get a look at what the program looks like. You can control everything, the lightings, there's different effects. You can go to different segments so you can control certain LEDs. It'll go with the music. It's a crazy program that's definitely worth learning if you're into LEDs. But let's move on to the finishing process. Before I get to sanding, I'm gonna go ahead and round over the corners with a metal screwdriver, but you can use anything that's metal and round and you just kind of brush it over. It burnishes the wood almost and closes up all those corners. With this being maple plywood, I'm being extra cautious to do a very light sanding. I don't want to take off too much of the veneer. So I'm just using 180 grit and kind of lightly going over everything just to make it a little bit smooth. Let's put some finish on these things just to see how pretty this maple turns out. I'm using some paint triangles so I could finish the top and bottom at the same time. And I'll be using none other than the beautiful Rubio Monocoat. It's super easy, 2-part, 3-to-1. You mix 3 parts of the main pure and then 1 part of the accelerator. I know the price tag on Rubio scares a lot of people away, but it goes so far. I'll be able to finish all 3 of these shelves with just a little bit of Rubio that you see on the picture there. If you stuck around this far, thank you. Please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, engage with it, whatever it is that you want to do, or dislike it and let me know in the comments what you didn't like. I'm trying out some music in this video, which is something I don't normally do. Please let me know if you enjoyed the music choice or not. I can go back to just the voiceovers with no music. I just kind of wanted to try something new just to see how it would turn out. Now let's put them on the wall. All I did was slide them in and then put a few screws towards the back just so they're held in place. We're about to get to the reveal, which you'll see I have the other side of the built-in shelves done. I did them off camera just because they were a pain because they were in between the wall. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Get out of your shop and build something, and as always, stay salty.